Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Today I'm really excited to have Brad Slaight. He's also known as Brad Meter Boy Slaight, but I'm going to read you his bio and then we're going to get right into the good stuff. So Brad is a Los Angeles-based actor and stand-up comedian. As an actor, Brad has appeared on many television shows and in films, including Parks and Recreation, Freshman Dorm, Married with Children, which I just told him was one of my favorite shows of all time, Unsolved Mysteries, Out of Control, Scream, Hellbent, Migrations, and a recurring role as Izzy Adams on The Young and the Restless. As a stand-up, Brad has toured the country performing in clubs, colleges, and casinos, and has appeared on numerous television shows and was voted Comedian of the Year by Playboy. And in addition to performing, Brad writes for television as a world-renowned playwright. And I'm going to add on to that is that he's the co-creator of diabetesheroesquad.com. And don't worry, I'm going to put all the information to that down there, but it's a really great website and he's going to tell us all about that. So Brad, thank you so much for joining us. I can already tell I'm going to be laughing a lot through this episode because I'm still smiling from our previous chat. How are you?
And you might make some money because I'm going to hire you as my publicist. That is great. I even was impressed with myself, and I know who I really am. So you did a great job of making me sound like I'm somebody.
Hey, I don't think I did anything. I just read it off of paper. You did it. You ran those miles, not me. So
unfortunately, when the Playboy nominated me as Comedian of the Year, they didn't want me to pose nude. So that's a good benefit for everybody.
Hey, that's a different magazine. That's Playgirl. We'll keep this PG though, for just in case anybody underage is watching.
You never know.
So I didn't even say anything in the intro about your diabetes, but Brad has also had diabetes for almost 30 years. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis and kind of the road you've traveled from then till now?
I have the bad kind of diabetes. It's called diabetes. No, actually, I still call it juvenile diabetes because it makes me sound a lot younger. Yeah. So those are the jokes. But seriously, my diagnosis, everybody's got their own story. Mine is probably as different and odd as anybody's. I was always I was overweight my entire life. I mean, at one point, I weighed 320 pounds. I moved out to California. And it's just different living out here. I'm from Michigan originally, where basically all you eat are meat and pies. And you start looking like the cows that are in the farms. When I came to California, I was introduced, I started eating a vegetarian diet. And the weight just it was different out here because you could eat fresh foods. There's the beach. I live 3 blocks from the ocean, exercise. I quit smoking. I quit eating. I mean, I really cleaned myself up. I literally was half the man I used to be. I got down to 150 pounds from 320. And then I got diabetes 3 years after that. And I went to my doctor and I said, because I thought, wow, I'm the perfect picture of health. And he said, you have diabetes. So I haven't eaten sugar in 5 years. That's how stupid I was. So it was kind of a shock, although it's in my family. I had a cousin who grew up. I knew about diabetes because she had it since she was 5. She's passed away now. She didn't, from what I hear, because of that, but they blame everything on diabetes, so you never know. So it's in my family, genetics. And the more I got to understand that, the more I realized, what I did by changing my lifestyle only benefited I remember I was at the hospital, the doctor checked me in because it was, you got it bad. And he wanted to observe me for a few days, do some tests. And I remember the nutritionist came in and said, okay, now, Brad, we're going to talk about your diet. And back then it was even more, they were, heavy-handed. And she said, tell me what you eat. And I said, well, I eat that. And she goes, all righty then. It was before Jim Carrey even said that. So that's kind of my diagnosis. And it did help that I ate well and that I exercised and, all of those things. It
still helps. I'm sure it still helps you now.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I've been thin for many years now. It's kind of probably thin longer than I was fat, but
yeah, I had no idea about that about you, and I can't.
I know you lost your tonnage yourself.
I mean, nowhere near as much as you. I've lost about 65 or so pounds, but half the man you used to be. That's quite an accomplishment. And that was before the diagnosis. That's quite impressive. So that just
that's the irony of it. It's like, of course, and you always have those people that would say, well, maybe you should have stayed fat.
It's all
people don't
understand if you're happy or not.
Huh?
I said it's all about if you're happy or not. And I would imagine you're happier at this weight, eating healthy foods, fueling your body with the things that are a little more productive than maybe that cow analogy that you made earlier.
Now I'm more like a cat.
Now you're more like a cat. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the Diabetes Hero Squad, because that's a pretty awesome thing you have going on. So for those of us out there that don't know what that is, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, first of all, it kind of ties in with my diagnosis. When you're first diagnosed, as I don't need to tell you, or probably anyone else if they're watching this that has diabetes, especially back when I got it, they used the scared straight tactics. Your eyes will explode, your legs will fall off, your heart's going to blow up. And I didn't respond well to that. I mean, they literally brought in a video cart to show me all these really maudlin, depressing, frightening videos. And again, I don't respond well to that because I have motivation. I just tell me the truth, but you don't have to make it like, this will happen to you.
Yeah, I feel the same way. They always make it like, this is your destiny. Guess what? And I hated that. And that's one of the things that I was unable and unwilling to accept. I'm like, no, this is not my destiny. And like you said, and that's why I think Diabetes Hero Squad is so great, because nobody, especially kids, even adults though, we don't want to hear some horrible dragging us down. If there's bad news, tell us bad news, but don't make it like, it's the end of the world. And that's why I want to hear more about this, because this is a great way to educate.
Well, and the other thing too is that of course you go out and you educate yourself, if you should anyway, to go out and educate yourself about what the disease, because you have it 24/7. You have to deal with it 24/7. Your doctor sees you, a half an hour in some crappy People magazines, once every 6 months. But so as the years went by, I didn't do much in the world of diabetes other than manage my own. And there were years, of course, and I'm sure everybody goes through that, where I wasn't in the best control, even with the exercise and the food. I would, and it takes, actually, I think a lot of people can relate to this. It takes like one visit to the doctor where he says, you're out of control, for you to start to realize that phones ring in the middle of interviews.
That's real life.
Just unplug that.
No, that's fine.
Actually, that's Dr. Banting calling me to say, remember to talk about the history of insulin. He calls quite a bit. I play him actually in a couple of videos. If you go to our website, I played Dr. Banting. I try to do him justice. Sometimes it's comedic. I did him once as the Liam Neeson character from Taken, where he's talking to diabetes. I don't know who you are.
Tell everybody out there who Dr. Banting is, just in case they don't know who Dr. Banting is.
Dr. Banting is our savior.
I know that, but
you do.
A lot of kids
Dr. Frederick E. Banting was credited, along with a few other guys, with discovering insulin. Up until then, type 1 diabetes was a pretty serious sentence.
Death sentence.
Yeah, death sentence. And he, which is ironic, because I talk about this a lot too, is that 92 years ago, the discovery of insulin, 94 years ago now, it was 1921 when they first started to make some progress. And he discovered insulin in a crappy little underfunded lab with a few assistants. Why, after all those years, and I try not to be bitter about that, but why, after all those years and the billions of dollars that people have raised and donated and the research, and I know there's, why we don't have a cure. And my only hope is, when I try to become a little cynical about it, I say to myself, there's another Dr. Banting out there. And, and I wrote about that the other day. He gave away his discovery. He got a Nobel Peace Prize, but he gave away the discovery, which, of insulin, all the profits, to the University of Toronto to use for research any money that was made from it. And I put that up the other day that I said, and I don't know what he'd think about the fact that insulin, a vial of insulin right now costs about $250.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms there.
We won't get into that.
We could get into that. This is going to turn into a really, really long call.
Danielle will have to go over and start working out on her things, you know, and her things that are because the equipment just to get the stress going.
No, it's a sad thing.
Getting back to the Diabetes Hero Squad, it came from the fact that we all you have to know about your disease. So I studied everything I could. Oh, now it's my phone. That I studied everything I could, and most of the literature was very dry and boring and technical. And flash ahead years later, when the co-creator of the Diabetes Hero Squad, Bill Kirchenbauer, who you may know from the ABC sitcom Just the 10 of Us, he played the coach, bald guy. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and we got together and we said, well, let's create something that our own way of giving to the diabetes advocacy world, because our talents are performing. So we created these characters called Captain Glucose and Meter Boy, the diabetes duo. And we did them as live action people. I mean, there's a video out there, we don't put it up anymore, but of us. It's very well produced. The director of his TV show did it for us, where we dressed in tights and capes, and we had the costumes and everything, and we were Captain Glucose and Meter Boy, live action. Well, you know, as you get older, you kind of go like, eh. So we created the animated characters, which stay young forever and very vital, and they're in shape, because we felt there was a need for informative and entertaining, we call it infotainment, approach to diabetes, and not just for kids, for people of all ages, that you can reach people with, pardon the pun expression, more people with sugar than vinegar.
Yeah.
You know, or more people with entertainment than dry technical.
I agree.
So that's how those characters were formed. Now we had to change the characters, so we could talk about that later, but we have Captain Glucose, we have Meter Boy, we have D-Girl, who's a type 1 pumper. We have the amazing Endo. We have, who else do we have? A dog, a type 1, an awareness dog. His name is Diagi, and he is hypo and hyper aware.
Nice.
So these are, and they all have little special powers. Where we made animated things with them, but it's again, it's a way to reach people using the tools we have, which is entertainment.
Right, and for me, one of the main reasons, well, besides the fact that it's just awesome in general, and like you said, it's a lot more, I guess, fun to receive information in that type of way. But for me to become, you know, the diabetes dominator, which is kind of the persona that I had to like adopt to go from obese to athlete, to go from an A1C of 14 to 6. To do that, I felt like I had to become the diabetes dominator, which in my mind is a superhero. And I think that a lot of people out there don't realize it, but I think that everybody who has diabetes and lives every day is their own version of a superhero. We can all be diabetes dominators. We can all be meter boys. We can all be D-girls. We can all be, you know, whatever. But the thing is, we are all kind of like superheroes because of all the stuff that we have to do all the time that people just don't see. It's like a, you know, it's just this behind the scenes, like you said, 24/7, 365 job. And it's like, we're superheroes. And I truly believe that, but we have to adopt that persona. So I think what you do with that kind of helps people see that, you know, or step into their own kind of superhero dumb. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and our motto, well, it used to be your own personal diabetes superhero, but we had to change it. And that was part of what our characters were. The word superhero, we found out, is trademarked.
Oh, wow.
By a company that has superheroes. And they were very nice about it, but they said in no uncertain terms, your characters come a little too close to Batman and Robin. And the word superhero is trademarked. We own it. there's, and again, we're in show business, so it's a major show business company. And we understand, because I write a lot, I do a lot of plays. You have to be very protective of intellectual property. I don't know about the word superhero. I mean, a lot of people use it. We don't anymore. But, diabetes hero works fine for us. And you're right. Anybody that has it, ours just happened to be a manifestation of who we all are. The best parts of the people we've met with diabetes, kind of what the characters are based on.
Yeah.
They're positive, they're proactive. They don't sit back and play victim. They go out and play victor. So I think that's what your point is kind of what we predicated our people on.
Yeah, no, and that's so awesome. And I love that you said that it's that victim mentality, because it's so easy. It's an easy mentality to adopt. And I can firsthand let you know that I lived in that mentality for 10 years or more. And, it's why me? Why did this happen to me? Well, I can't do that. I have diabetes. I can't do that. I have diabetes. I'm a victim. And I think having that superhero mentality kind of can help you lift yourself out of, all of us can help all of us lift ourselves out of that negative connotation, because diabetes sucks. there's no like way to get around that. But at the same time, it's like there's tons of other stuff in the world out there that sucks too. This is just the sucky card that we got dealt. So we can either adopt a superhero victor mentality, or we can adopt that victim mentality, which is, never going to serve us or help us make progress or do infotainment or anything like that, to contribute back to the world, or even your own little world. Just contribute something positive so you can feel more in charge, in control, even though I don't necessarily feel like diabetes is a thing you can control, but I feel like our actions around diabetes are the things that we can control. So I think that's an awesome way to show people.
We have tools to try to control it, but as you know, diabetes, despite your best efforts, there was a little meme I made once where it was a picture of a food, and it was called Unsolved Mysteries, and it was a dinner, blood glucose 2 hours later, 93, and the same picture of the same dinner, blood glucose 2 hours later, 312.
Right.
Your diabetes does have a way. So it is. You just got to keep. It's like holding 100 corks underwater at once. But we do have some tools, and I'm all for the advancement of devices. Sometimes I worry that the technology is taking a lot of time and money, away from if they just put everything in. Well, we won't get into the research. That's a whole show.
We could get into conspiracy theories all day, because I have a few of my own, but let's not. I don't want to alienate a whole portion of the audience out there. But yeah,
that's right.
The technology does help. I mean, for me, I went 23 of my 24 years almost without anything. I didn't have a CGM, or I didn't have a pump. And I'm actually coming up on my 1-year anniversary with my pump in a couple of months. And my CGM, I've had a little over a year. And I do have to say that they have made my life a lot more happy. I mean, I really don't, there's no other word for it. They've allowed me to do things with more confidence, with more feelings of empowerment. And, so are you a pumper, or are you an injector? What do you, if you're willing to share that personal information?
I have, it's weird. I've had pretty good, my control has been very good for years now. My last A1C was like 5.5, which awesome. I know is just a number. Well, it's just a number. It doesn't mean anything. And I'm greatly aware of the fact that some people who are out of control may never get complications, and vice versa. You could be the tightest control. They feel that diabetes is such a multi-layered disease. They don't even know all the layers yet, and maybe that's one of the layers that you're predisposed. Mm-hmm. I discussed it with my endo. I'm pretty happy with MDI, and I have been from it, but I kind of look at myself as a human pump. I test maybe 10 times a day, or check my blood sugar 10 times a day, and make corrections if I have to. So, yeah, I could have jumped, and my endo just says, what do you feel like doing? And I said, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that doesn't mean I'm kind of waiting for that closed loop thing. I told her, so once they get everything together where I can just have one little thing and it's all taken care of that works as a real pancreas, if I'm not going to get my real one back, then I will certainly opt for that technology. But right now, again, if I was having control problems, I wouldn't hesitate.
You know, and I think that's...
And I'm really glad that that technology is there for people that it does improve what their control.
And that's an excellent point, because for me, it was a very big decision, because I also wasn't having control issues. For me, it was more of an exercise thing. I wanted to know what was happening before it was happening. I wanted to be able to have micro control over the incremental, because, you know, when you're injecting with the syringe, you know, you can like kind of get to half a unit, maybe a quarter unit, but you're eyeballing it. Like with the pump, for me, it's like I can get, you know, 1/10 of a unit, and I can inject 1/10 of a unit and just dial it up on a screen. For me, it was more like I had to get over wearing something on my body, like you said, because there is that freedom when you are doing the manual daily injections where, you know, you don't have anything attached to you. There's no, you know, my husband calls me a cyborg, which is cool because he's really into science. So that works out well for both of us. But I actually have adopted it. You know, it's like I have cyborg parts, and you know what? The way the world is turning nowadays, I think within a couple of years, whether you have diabetes or not, half of us are going to have some type of, you know, Google eyeglass, and like this is going to be implanted under your skin. I'm like, I might as well just get into it before the future gets here. So it's just a personal decision. You don't have to necessarily have bad control to get a pump, or you don't need to get one either way. It's just you have to decide what works for you. But like you said, think about it. Talk to your endo. You know, if your endocrinologist is not asking you what you want to do, then maybe it's time to find a new endocrinologist, because it's about what you want.
Yeah, it's time to get a new.
Yeah, exactly.
Finding a good endo is like getting a good car mechanic. You know, they not only do they need to know what's under the hood, they need to know what you need, you know, done, and you have to trust them. Trust is so important, and just hope that they don't touch your headlights. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. You know, there you go. There's the sound effects. Awesome. So I was going to say, is there anything else that you want to tell us about any maybe projects you're working on?
You talk to a couple people from the...
Wait, I just lost you. What was that? I lost you. You froze up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit. Am I coming through clear enough?
Now I got you. I just didn't hear the last thing you said.
I was just talking about the unconference. You've interviewed a couple people from the unconference. This is where we met in person, live.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was an amazing event. Funny enough, though, the only person that I've interviewed from the unconference after the unconference has been Christelle, who was the creator. But Jody, Dr. Jody, I actually interviewed her before the unconference, and she's the reason that I even went to the unconference, because after the interview, she asked me if I was going. And I said, no, I didn't even know of it, really. It was, she's like, oh, come room with me, come split the cost. And that's how but now that I went, I have this whole slew of new people that I want to interview, because there's so many amazing freaking people that were there. So you're actually the first post-unconference interview that I'm doing, that, you know, so yeah.
Well, I'm flattered. And now, when did you kind of find and discover the Diabetes Online community?
For me, probably I've discovered it a couple of years ago, but I didn't really become active until about 1 year ago. And then when I dived in kind of head first, I've had my Diabetes Dominator website because I do coaching, and I've had clients, and I do things but I wasn't like doing tons of blogs all the time. But now I'm just like, the more I get involved, the more I want to be involved. The more people I meet, the more people I want to meet. It's just this amazing support group of people. And the fact that we got to go, and this is, you know, if you're out there and you're considering going to any type of diabetes conference, do it. It's going to be a great decision for you. And it's just so amazing to be around so many other people who just get it. You don't, it's like,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, there's no acclimation period. Even though they're strangers, within 5 minutes of talking to anyone, you're like, oh yeah, you're my brother or sister, because you get it. So it's just awesome.
You get it. And that was, you know, the first thing I even knew about the Diabetes Online community. We were interviewed for Carrie's 6 Until Me website because she had a thing for superheroes.
Yeah.
And you know what I compare it to is when I was in high school, I did some plays, but nobody was really into acting. I mean, they did it, but you know, it was just another curriculum thing, extracurriculum thing they could do. When I went to college, all of a sudden I found a whole group of people that wanted to be actors. And that's what I think I compare to the diabetes online community. It's the first time, and you remember the first time you met someone else who had type 1 diabetes, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that instant connection. I mean, I've gone through a couple of commercial auditions out here where everybody there has type 1 diabetes. And it's kind of like, yeah, here's my picture, my resume, and my blood sample. And it's amazing because immediately you have a connection. Whether you would have gotten along if you didn't have it, it doesn't really matter. It's that you look at them and you know that it's this, you know, you're in with the in crowd that nobody wants to be in.
Yeah.
The club, exactly. You know, all of those things. But it gives it's kind of like when you see a car, you know, you see a car that's just like yours on the road, same color and everything. You go, hey, it's like you know them.
And I think,
or even the US, I was doing a stand-up show and somebody said, in the act, I was talking about being from Michigan, and they go, you're from Michigan, I'm from Ohio. I was like,
what?
Well, that's because we were out in LA and they thought, wow, Midwest, hey, brother.
Yeah,
so I give you right home. Yeah.
But I think out there for the people watching, I think the whole point of that is that don't underestimate the power of the diabetes online community. Don't think it's just some, you know, BS thing that's out there, you know, people tooting their own horns. Because for me, the whole reason I created this interview series was to provide as many positive examples in the diabetes online community as I possibly could. Because it's like, if I'm not the one that's doing it for you, I don't care. No harm, no foul, you know, no offense taken. But I want to provide you with a whole slew of other people who are out there doing stuff that maybe you'll relate to, because we all have this voice that I think needs to be heard. And I think part of getting, you know, into that superhero mentality is accepting the fact that your voice matters and that there's a whole bunch of people out there that want to hear it, whether or not you know or believe that right now. And I think that's really important because, like I said, for me, you know, there was no internet when I was diagnosed. I was, you know, people didn't have computers in their house. It was not a normal thing. Like the internet I didn't even get the internet till I was like 18 or 17, and I was diagnosed at 8. So it's like, you're not alone. Even though it feels like you're alone, you're not alone. I actually was just speaking with a pediatrician friend of mine who, there's like a cat fight going on in the back of my,
I love that.
But he was saying how
this is a
live action film. Yeah. But he was saying how he has these kids that come in and they have a program where, you know, it's like they go out and bring other kids in with diabetes to speak to them. And the kids say the best part of going to the doctor is when they get to go meet other kids with diabetes, because even though kids now have this internet, they don't realize the vast availability of support. You know, how many Facebook groups there are, how many Twitter groups there are, how many websites like, you know, 2 Diabetes where you can just go on and just chat right now, you know, live action. Like you said, you can just go into a forum and start saying whatever you want to say and get support or get advice or just vent, you know, but the point is everybody there gets it and we want to hear your voice. So go out there and join or search or whatever it is, go watch, you know, the Diabetes Hero Squad videos and, you know, get a kick out of it, and then, you know, find some inspiration to be your own superhero, because I think that's at the end of the day what it's all about, getting out of our shell.
I always tell people, you know, that in terms of diabetes advocacy, maybe you can't blog, maybe you don't feel like, you know, you're a good writer, maybe you don't do this, maybe you don't create characters or videos, but do something. Everybody's got their own talent and everybody brings something new to the table. But you can sit back and just kind of take everything in, and that's great too, but contribute. Because everybody I know, if I talk to them, and I think the Unconference proved that, everybody has a different story, and we have the commonality, but there's something I got. I don't think there was anybody I talked to that I didn't get something from, you know, and I felt selfish about that, but hopefully, you know, I contributed something to them. But there are a lot of people that feel hesitant about getting involved, or I don't blog, or I'm shy. It doesn't matter. just do what you can.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you don't have to be like some uber talent to do anything. But the point is that, but we also did talk about, you know, a lot of people at the unconference, even though they came out to meet people in person, they had never really participated in the diabetes online community yet. And they had labeled themselves as lurkers. You know, they lurked and they read and they didn't, you know what, it's okay to be a lurker for a while, but we want to hear your voice, you know, but even if you never say anything and you still get some type of comfort from interacting or just watching other people interact, I think that's okay too. But I think you're stifling, like you said, you're stifling your own voice. You don't have to be a blogger or anything. You could just go and have a conversation with someone one day and probably leave the conversation feeling 1,000 pounds lighter because you've actually just shared that story or learned.
And they got something out of your story.
Exactly. So yeah, awesome.
Don't be a worker, be a diabetes worker.
There you go. You heard it from Brad first. Be a lurker. So I'm going to ask you now.
Make a bumper sticker.
You should. I bet you probably make a couple bucks off of that. And then you can donate it to only cure research. No tech research, just cure research.
I write that on all my checks that I send in for research only.
Yeah, for cure research only. Don't let me find out this is going to any tech.
Yeah. I spend this on snacks for the break room.
Yeah, right. So as entertaining as you've been, I would like to now ask you to give us your top 3, I like to say actionable tips, but they don't have to be like super actionable. But what do you say to somebody who's out there, you know, maybe they are lurking or they haven't even gotten into the lurker phase. They're just like feeling helpless, maybe feeling a little hopeless and thinking they are alone, even though they're not. We're not alone. But what would you say to them? Maybe your top 3 things.
If I had to come up with top 3 things, and this is totally improvised, but I'm a professional improviser, so Perfect. I'm not worried. I would say be your own personal diabetes hero, which I've said before. Be proactive, not Prozactive. Catchy phrase. And the third thing would be to not blame yourself for anything. Don't blame yourself if your number's high. Don't blame yourself that you have diabetes. Don't blame, you know, the blame game is so easy to do. It's kind of funny because when I was really fat, and I'll use that word because I was 320 pounds. I'm not a tall guy. You know, people are always calling me saying, Brad, what top 3 things would you say? But my point being is with the blame game, don't blame people for calling you because they don't know you're in the middle of a great interview with Daniele. And being dominated by the Dominator. I would say is that when I was fat, it was like, oh, when I lost the weight, and I don't know about you, but it was kind of like, well, what can I blame stuff on now? You know, it's like, oh, I didn't go to the prom. Oh, it's because I was fat. Oh, I didn't get that job. Bet it was because I was fat. And now with diabetes, in a sick kind of way, I guess you could use that. But, you know, I didn't win the lottery. Diabetes. It's kind of like, you know, Obama, they use that for everything. No, it's like, I didn't win the game. Diabetes. Oh, yeah. But don't blame yourself. That would be my
point. I think that's a really important point is the blame game is a fruitless game. Like you could just do it over and over again. It's like this vicious cycle that never ends because there's no exit and there's no real answer. You're not going to actually ever get to blame someone and be like, oh yeah, that's why. And then what? But there's no blame because there's just not. So spend that energy on something more positive. Like you said, you know, being your own superhero, going out there and talking to other people, because that effort is effort. It's mental effort. And it takes a lot of mental effort to beat yourself up. Trust me, I know. I used to beat myself up really, really bad on a very regular basis, which is why I continued on that cycle of being fat, having high A1Cs, and for me, binge eating over and over again. And it was just, there was nothing that ever good that came of it until I stopped blaming myself. I even used to say, like, I must have like been a serial killer in a past life or something because diabetes, you know, is such a curse and all this stuff. It's like, you know what? No, that's not true.
No. You didn't. Yeah, no, you're not being punished for something. Right. I mean, you know, but you can use it. I used it on my mom once. She was mad at me about something. I said, well, I got diabetes because of you and your genetics. Thanks a lot. But I did it as a joke, so she would laugh. And she goes, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I said, please, come on. You didn't do this. You gave me a life. This is great. I don't hold anything. But I play the card only as a joke now. It's a joker card of my deck of diabetes.
There you go. So, and you guys, you should take a note from Brad and, you know, really employ that sense of humor, because humor really does lighten the situation, even though sometimes it's not funny, you know, when your blood sugar is 300 or 400 and you feel like you want to murder someone and you don't know why it's happening. But still, like, if you can make a joke about it, it really does kind of, laughter is really great medicine, you know, not better than insulin, but still really good, and use it. You know, don't just think that you're in this hole by yourself and nothing's fun and nothing's funny, because it is. And
I wrote an article for Glue about bolusing laughter, that laughter, you know, the importance of laughter. Physiologically, it does help your body. It really does. You can look up all of those things. But once in a while, because I put out a lot of funny pictures and we do videos that are humor-based about diabetes, I would say 99% of the people love them and they share them. And once in a while, I'll get an email from somebody saying, I don't think diabetes is funny, which I'm always sensitive to, and I understand where they might be coming from, but I always tell them the same thing. Neither do I. But I think the human condition that we all have to go through, you can find humor in it. It's like I can find humor in my humalog situation, is what I say, because I'm more than human. I'm a humalog. And it isn't. I'm not making fun of diabetes. You don't make fun of diabetes. But if we don't release a little bit of that stress and pressure, and laughter sometimes is as good as, not as good or as running a mile or working out on your weights there, but it does relieve a lot of stress, and it empowers you. Humor can empower you to say, you're not going to get me down. I'm going to find humor in fracking my finger 8 times a day. You know,
that's a whole new term. I'm not going to get into that, but no, that's really good, because I mean, I'm huge into anatomy and physiology. I love the fact that, but it does, laughter does really, it gets endorphins going. It releases all kinds of feel good hormones and all those things. It's like, and I always, like, one of my favorite things to say is that your body hears everything your mind says. So if you're just constantly talking negative about yourself, it's not just your mind that's getting affected, it's your body. And you're feeling, you could be releasing a whole bunch more cortisol, which leads to higher blood sugars if you're constantly negative and never releasing that tension, like you said, with laughter, because laughter really is medicine. It's not, that's not a joke. It really does help give you all these feel-good hormones, and that is like going to lift you up instead of keeping you down. So
you might even say with diabetes, don't just medicate, dominate.
Oh, there you go. I like it.
There's a sticker just for you, Danielle.
So I was going to say, you'll hire me to be your publicist, and I'll hire you to make my taglines, and we'll have a nice mutually beneficial relationship. Well, is there anything else? Oh, there you go. Brad's got the sound effects and everything. I'm surprised you haven't put a hat on.
Are you kidding? I don't, I'm usually working in front of a camera with sets and makeup and everything else. You got to have everything to make this face look good.
Oh, stop it. So is there anything coming up that we should be looking for? Or, are you going to be on any, any new diabetes hero squad things coming up? Or, because I'm going to put don't worry guys, I'm going to put everything under the YouTube video. I'm going to give you the Diabetes Hero Squad website, and anything else that Brad wants you guys to find, I'll give you a link to that under there. But is there anything else you want to mention before we?
It's just if somebody wants to friend us on Facebook, they can find us through our website too. But I personally put out a lot of stuff just because I've been trained to create. So I create a lot of funny pictures and videos and things. So just keep your eye open for that. Diabetes humor is so cool. I can't ever do any of this on stage. But
get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Once in a while, I'll do a diabetes joke, and I always go out of my way somehow to work it in, but I don't spend a lot of time on it. It's like born again smokers, of talking too much about it. But I will always make a point at some place in my act of mentioning you do not get diabetes from sugar, and to try to squelch that myth. But I found ways to do it humorously, and I just move on. But I've planted that seed. And if all of us, if we can find a way without preaching to tell people what diabetes is really like and to bust those myths, we'd be doing everybody a service. So even if you don't have a blog, even if you don't bring anything to the table, you can do that much. You can just mention to people, oh, you know, you don't get diabetes from eating sugar, by the way. It's amazing how many people still don't know that.
And I'd say it's the majority of people, because it's perpetuated by just about everything. So yeah, no, absolutely. Don't be afraid to open your mouth and say what the truth is. And don't always be angry about it, because people just don't know. It's not because they don't care. It's just because they just don't know.
That's a good point.
They just don't know. And it's not like they're trying to be rude and that's another thing that I had to really get over is like, I used to be angry, really angry. Like, what do you mean? How could you be so rude or stupid? Because I didn't get this from eating sugar. I was an average sized child, you know, but people just don't know. Just like, I mean, you know, I know a lot about a lot of health conditions, but I don't know everything about every type of cancer or every type of, you know, people don't know. And it's not because they're dumb. They're just, you know, that's not their focus. That's not their area of focus. And it is our job to be advocates, to spread the truth in a loving way, not in an angry way.
Again, you capture more flies. You bust more myths with sugar as opposed to vinegar. And people respond much better to, and I've seen that online with, like, there'll be a fight that'll break out or whatever of some bakery. I remember a bakery in Australia or New Zealand, it was around had, like, you know, a donut called the diabetes or whatever. And it was stupid, but everybody just jumped on that person. And I just went on my way to write something. I said, you may not be aware of this, but it's insensitive for this reason, and it's because it's just not true. If you're going to be funny, I love humor, but make it truthful. Only the truth is really funny.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I mean, we could sit here and talk all night because we have so many good things to say, but I'm going to wrap it up for the sake of being able to watch this in one sitting. So Brad, it's been my pleasure, and my cheeks hurt because I've been laughing this whole time, but thank you so much for coming here and sharing your wisdom and humor with us. And hopefully somebody out there is going to see you and go ahead and find their superhero because of it. So
and my cheeks hurt because I've been sitting here longer than the interview's been going on. You see, anyway, well, thank you for what you're doing. I think diabetes needs to be dominated, and dominated a lot.
That's true. That's very true.
You're the person to do that.
That is me and everybody else. Everybody can be a diabetes dominator. So, all right. So thank you guys for joining us, Brad. I'm going to give Brad the information under the video, and go check out his stuff and, you know, share. And even if it's his humor that you share to educate people, he has plenty of funny little memes that you can share to tell people what the real deal is. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.
Goodbye.